beautiful stars. I wanna drive a faster car. Nothing can break me, no, no, nothing can break me. Try not to hold me.
Good morning, guys. This is part 2 of the F150 front end rebuild. Part 1 I haven't posted quite yet, but by the time you see this video, it will be posted. We're working on the left front corner here. I've already done the right front corner. That was kind of my practice run. It's the same process. It's just on the opposite side. So this morning what we're working on, we're going to be putting the CV back in, changing the upper control arm, putting the knuckle back on, and the new rotor and new pads, as well as the inner and outer tie rod end on this side. So when we left off on this project, you may remember at the end of part 1 that I was fighting with the CV shaft because it was broken. I spoke with Summit Racing and they actually sent me a new one. So we're going to put that in this morning, and hopefully this one doesn't appear to be sealed on. This one looks pretty good. So hopefully this one is okay and we'll get this installed. So we've got to get the axle unboxed here, or uncovered. Comes with a new nut. Put that aside for a moment. The other end on. So this axle is a little difficult to get through the lower control arm and the sway bar. What you have to do is come up through the bottom, because it won't fit through just going straight in. So we have to come up through the bottom, kind of like this here. Like so. Our rally axle is sitting in place, and we can start to take our bolts here. These are 13 millimeter, but you would never know because they're pretty rusty and hard to tell. I use a little bit of anti-seize, never seize graphite formula. Just put a little bit on there. It just keeps things from rusting together. Some people probably use Loctite. This is just what I was taught how to use. Yeah, we've got all of our bolts never seized. We're gonna work on getting this, like, one or two of them lined up to hold it in place. So now I've got the axle installed in the truck. We're gonna work on, I think we're gonna work on the inner outer tie rod assembly next and get that installed. Then we'll do the upper control arm, and then the knuckle can go back on. This is the inner tie rod end. You can see it's a Moog component. Part number is ES3369T. Again, this is the inner tie rod end. So we're gonna take this out of the box. We want to match it up. This is the old assembly. This is going to be the new assembly. New couplers. They're also Moog ES3368S. There's one there. Like that. Comes with a hardware kit. And then we also have the outer tie rod end, also Moog ES3366T. So what we're going to do, that also comes with hardware. So this will be, we're going to mirror this assembly here. We're going to mirror this assembly before we put it in the truck. So we've got this old assembly here, and we're going to take a 15/16. You can see here, hopefully the camera picks up on it, there's this little notch, or these notch sections. We're going to put the 15/16 wrench there. Then we're going to take an 1 1/8 wrench and put it on the jam nuts, and we're going to break it loose. So I guess that wasn't recording. So we've got the inner tie rod back in the old sleeve. The new sleeve has stripped threads on it. It sucks. I couldn't even get it to start. Before we put this back together, you'll want to put your Zerk or your grease fitting in. This is going to sit in the truck kind of like this. We've marked the sleeve on this end, marked the jam nut, and mark the tie rod. So now we're going to take the tie rod, the outer tie rod out. Maybe. All right, it's reverse threaded. That's right, dummy. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, well, 27. Now we're going to do the jam nut. Same concept. I already put a little coil on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. I don't know if we're going to get all that off. Put my gloves on because it's digging into my hand. Oh yeah, there it is. So I marked it on the top. So I'm going to mark it on the top. I'm going to mark the nut. Let's put a little bit on there just to help it go on. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll find our mark here. There we go. This one is at 27. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what it's going to look like sitting in the truck. And you can see, so this is definitely the outer one, because you can see the grease fitting, or zerk fitting, is in the top, and the inner one, it's in the end of it. So we'll put those in too. You'll take the a 9/32 wrench, and we'll put the fittings into the tie rods. These guys do come pre-greased, so we'll put. They're hard to get started. You have to. There's no threads in these holes. You kind of have to start them with the fitting. Right, that one's in. We'll do this guy. And the way I get these started, if you're putting an assembly together like this, is I take a wrench, put it over it, I put my finger on top of it, and I just turn it until it gets started, and it's not going to pop out on you. Now we have a fully assembled inner and outer tie rod set up here for the F150. What we're going to do now is take our new tie rod assembly here, new package, and we're going to put it back in the steering shaft, and we're going to start our nut here. Get it on. The nut is a 13/16. And we're just gonna take the ratchet and just till you start to feel some resistance. We're gonna take our torque wrench here. We're gonna put our socket on it. Now these bolts, or these nuts, are supposed to be torqued between 56 and 84 foot-pounds. So I like to split the difference. So we're probably gonna do like 65 foot-pounds, because they are locked in with a cotter pin. I'll put that on like so. There we go. So now it's at 65 foot-pounds. What you might have to play with is there's a hole in the center of this guy where you put your cotter pin through, and I don't think we quite lined up. So we might have to bump it up just a hair and get it to a point where we can get the cotter pin in. Almost there. Once you get your cotter pin in place here, you'll take a pair of pliers and we'll bend it over like this on one side, and then I'll typically bend it over like this on another side. The next step in this front end rebuild is replacing this upper control arm. Nothing inherently wrong with it. Matter of fact, the bowl joint is still pretty stiff. I replaced these not too long ago, but we're in here and I'm gonna have to get it aligned, so I kind of want to replace as much as I can while I'm in there, so I don't have to do it again for a while. And it's, you know, this should come out fairly fairly easily since I've had it apart before. The struts, or shocks rather, I probably should replace those as well, but they've only got about 20,000 miles on them. So I'm gonna leave those for, you gotta call it somewhere. So same thing with the end links. So this will be enough to get this truck to pass inspection, etc. All right, we're gonna take apart this guy here. Socket going. I have to fuss with this a little bit. I am using a 7/8 socket on one end and a 22 on the other end. I don't believe they're the right sockets, but they pretty much fit. I've tried every socket that I've had, and those are the closest ones I can get. And I don't know if it's because the bolts are a little rusty and they're rounded, or what the deal is. When you pull these on, I've had these off before. You want to note the location so you can put the control arm back in the right spot. Back bolt's a little hard to get out just because there's some harnesses and lines in the way here, so you may have to fuss with those. Alright, so there's the back bolt. Try a little bit to walk these guys out. I'll walk this one out. Again, it depends on how long they've been in there. This one's probably only got 25,000 miles on it. It's not been in there very long. So it should be fairly straightforward to come out. All right, this is the new upper control arm for the truck, Moog CK8722T. Comes with the new upper ball joint, boot, etc. I think this whole assembly is like 50 bucks. We'll put the grease fitting in the same way we did the tie rods. We'll put the boot on, and then we'll throw this back in the truck. Open our package of goodies that came with this. This guy is actually a 5/16. It's a little bigger than the tie rods. Same concept. A little pressure on it just to get it started, and there we go. Like so. And that literally just kind of slides on and snaps into place. So if you're having trouble getting it in, I just use a little bit of this white lithium grease here. We'll just put a dab on each side, smear it around a little bit just to get things sliding in there. Alright, so now we've got the upper control arm in. We've got to line it up and get it in place. So we'll work on getting the rear one in place here. But this will make it pretty close so you can get it to your alignment guide lined up. Now what we need to do, we need to find our bolt for the upper control arm. We need to find the bolt for the ball joint. We're gonna kind of kick that off to the side for the moment here. We're gonna put a little white grease on here so it slips in the splines appropriately. And we're gonna start put the knuckle back on the truck. The first thing we'll do is slide get the axle lined up here. There we go. Now everything's kind of sitting in place. We'll put that on last. Let's get the bolts snugged up on the upper and lower ball joints. Now we're gonna tighten up the ball joints here. They are approximately 1 1/16. So those are snugged down. We'll have to torque those. Now we've got to do the upper control arm, and this is where having like a. All right. So now we're gonna tighten up the upper control arm. They're about roughly 100 foot-pounds. ball joint is between 57 and 76 foot-pounds. So we'll get that taken care of here. And that's it's an inch and a 16th, I think is what the size is. Alrighty, so same thing as before. Put the cotter pin in. Take your pliers. So you don't get anything in the way. Bolt wrench between 83 and 112 foot-pounds. So we'll probably do about 90 foot-pounds, 95 foot-pounds. We'll start at 90. 13/16. Get this started here. So the next step, we've got new rotors. I'm going to put a new rotor and a new set of pads on, and then we'll put the caliper back on. We'll put the tire back on, we'll drop it down on the ground, we'll tighten this bolt, the axle bolt, and we'll torque it, and then we'll do the same thing to the other side of the axle, the trim. So we've got these great power stop rotors and pads. I got these from Summit. I think they came from Summit or Rock Auto. I don't remember. I'll try and find the link and put them in the description. I think the pads were 40 or 50 bucks, and the rotors were, I don't know, 100 bucks maybe. The rotors and pads on here, not terribly bad, but they're rusty from sitting. So I said, well, you know, we're in there. Let's put fresh stuff on. I didn't have these when I did the other side, so I'll have to take the caliper off the other side at some point and change it out. But we have them now. We're gonna put them on. This corner will all be done. We can send the truck for alignment and inspection. So I take a little paint thinner, take our new rotor. This just gets any, we'll do the back side first. This just gets any oils and grease and stuff off of it before you put it on the truck. So I just take a little bit. You can probably use like mineral spirits or any real kind of degreaser, really. Just gets any oily residue off. Put over to the other side. And that's really all we need to do. Done. Alright, there's our new rotor. Put the caliper, we'll put a lug nut on it just to hold it in place so that I can get the caliper on it. Right there. Alright, so now we're going to take our pads, open these guys up. Get a brand new hardware kit for the caliper, but we'll put I guess we'll put the slides in because those are pretty raunchy looking. So these are the new pads. Z23 carbon fiber ceramic brake pads. These brake pads, hopefully you can see this on camera, they're these metal clips that the brake pads slide on. They sit in the channel here, and these guys are pretty gross looking, so we're gonna pop those out. So we also have to put this metal clip in the caliper. This truck did not have this initially. I don't remember if it's needed or not, but it looks like it is, so we're gonna put it in. All right, so after some digging, I'm remembering how I put these together. We're gonna take the slide, caliper slide off here, and there's no way you're gonna easily get the pads in with that on the slide bracket. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna coil this guy up out of the way here. Probably replacing these boots on here anyway, and now you can get a better picture of how the clips sit in here. So we'll put the pads in here, we'll bolt this on the truck, and then we'll put the caliper on that. I'm gonna take it apart this far anyway. we're gonna pull these guys out. I got new boots that came with the kit. We'll put on there. Now we've got the slides back in place. Now we can work on putting our pads in. All right, so now we can take our caliper slide bracket here, and we're gonna put this on the knuckle of the truck, and we're gonna find our bracket bolts here, and we're gonna start those. At this point you can see we've got the slide bracket and the pads in, and the caliper will just sit over it, and we'll put it in, we'll bolt it on with these bolts into the side bar. So this is the bracket that goes into the caliper itself. You can see these clips clip onto the caliper, and then, right, yeah, it goes on there like that. So it gives the pad something to ride on. This was actually missing out of this truck. I don't know why. I'm going to torque our caliper bolts. So I'm gonna take our slide bracket bolts, and these are in there real good. We're definitely gonna put some never sees on these guys. I have to go get a C-clamp, push these pistons in a little bit. I'm just walking them back and forth until we get the pistons all the way in. All right, and that should be pretty good. That should be enough to get it onto the slider. There we go. All right, so now you can see the pistons are all the way back into the housing. Got the bracket bolts started. We're gonna tighten those guys down. Now we've replaced all the parts up here. We're going to clean up, put the tire back on, and we'll torque this down, and we'll see about torquing the axle bolts as well. Tighten these guys up here, and that will be it for this job here. Guys, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe below. Leave me a comment, shoot me a message. I have more content coming to the channel. These are just a few of the, between the Dart and the F150. I definitely have more Mustang videos coming as soon as we finish up the Project Dart. So again, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe below. You can also follow along on my Instagram, ACHubbard117. I'll post a link in the description.